everyone, my name is Cheryl Nadres, Teacher 1 at Pratadias National High School, undertaking graduate studies in Sorsogon State University, Masters of Arts in Education, major in English. This is a short presentation about my research entitled Challenges Encountered and Teachers' Needs in Teaching English through Modular Distance Learning. Shown in this slide is the picture of my local study, which is Pratadias National High School, the biggest school among the three high schools in Pratadias. It was established in 1968. It has a total population of 1,216 students, 47 junior high school teachers, 16 senior high school teachers, and 8 non-teaching persons. The outbreak of COVID-19 pandemic across the world has profoundly altered almost all aspects of life, including education, and Philippines has not been an exception to these changes. The difficulty of handling the outbreak from spreading more widely has made world leaders develop super strict rules so that the chain of the spread of COVID-19 can be broken. Some standards that the World Health Organization in 2019 has recommended, such as social distancing and physical distancing, have created difficult choices for each country to implement. Also, the country was placed in a state of calamity under the Presidential Proclamation No. 99 series of 2010. Suspension and temporary closing of companies, enterprises, and business operations have taken effect. The movement of people, goods, and services within the and across municipal boundaries was also restricted. Education sector is one of the most affected fields brought by COVID-19 pandemic. Schools have become the most vulnerable to safety and security. Health concerns of such personnel, students, parents, and other stakeholders are at stake. Thus, temporary closure of schools were enforced to contain the spread of the virus and reduce infections, according to UNESCO in 2020. Community lockdown and quarantine led work from home among teachers and study from home among students through online distance learning, according to Crawford et al. In 2020. Other schools cut their classes short than expected, which causes serious disruption to more educational opportunities. The opening of classes for the next academic year is delayed, giving more time to schools to prepare continuity plans and manage alternative learning modalities. Teaching and learning which mainly happens inside the classroom become the most susceptible to disturbance, so education leaders decided to cope with and adapt to new normal education. Globally, many schools have already replaced traditional classroom setups with innovative flexible learning strategies, since these are found to improve students' learning outcomes by key in 2020. The Philippines education system, particularly in the basic education, faces challenges related to learning during three modalities. It is eyed that marginalized learners are expected to have less access to resources, causing social disadvantage and digital divide. Thus, flexible learning has been subjected to further evaluations and debates in terms of inclusivity and equity in educational opportunities. Education shall continue despite the situation. The Department of Education has implemented its Basic Education Learning Continuity Plan for the academic year 2020 to 2021. Basic Education Learning Continuity Plan is a package of education interventions that will respond to basic education challenges brought about COVID-19 as Deducted Order No. 12, Series of 2020, and so to protect the health, safety and well-being of learners, teachers, and personnel, and prevent the further transmission of COVID-19. The department will implement the alternative learning delivery modalities such as modular, validation-based, ratio-based instruction, blended and online, while face-to-face classes are still prohibited due to the public health situation. Our education system needs to empower learners to promote soft learning. It is not something that is being given, but instead something that is being done by the learner. Likewise, Jean Piaget, who is the key proponent of this theory, suggested that new knowledge is constructed from learners' experiences through the process of assimilation and accommodation, as derived from the idea of biology's concept of adaptation. Assimilation has something to do with the newly acquired experience which is being incorporated into an already existing idea or framework without changing the idea or framework. Accommodation, on the other hand, is a process by which a learner's mental representation of the world is suitable to new experiences. Accommodation and assimilation processes should achieve cognitive equilibrium, which is sets of mental models for experiences called schema by Kaufman in 2014. During the process of knowledge construction, learners tend to generate their own mental models, which gives meaning to their experiences. As to the curriculum offering, the learning competencies have been decontrasted to focus only on the most essential learning competencies, which are aligned to the achievement of 21st century skills such as critical thinking, collaboration, communication, and creativity. Consequently, instructional delivery is shifted into a different undertaking in the teaching and learning process. Subject matter has been taught in different ways, such as inquiry, hands-on learning, social interaction, and constructive listening. However, such pedagogies seem difficult to implement in a distance learning, and teachers do not feel adequately able and prepared to teach the subject remotely. By Cheryl in 2015, teachers who are new to distance learning may feel unprepared to facilitate teaching. Thus, need support as the technical, pedagogical, and time management by women in 2030. Instruction heavily relies on technology, leaving the teachers not fully prepared and lack of competence by Nielsen and Guzan in 2018. In this regard, digital literacy gains recognition as the key tool for lifelong learning and vulnerability for Industry 4.0. However, it has still its downside due to the high cost and maintenance, accessibility to online platforms and resources, and incompetence. Thus, this study was conducted to explore the real picture of the challenges encountered by teachers in communicating with their students as they teach English through modular distance learning. Also to find out how they deal with these challenges. Furthermore, it attended to determine the needs of teachers in dealing with unresolved challenges in teaching English through modular distance learning. Objectives of the study. The study was conducted to view the real struggle of the secondary teachers in communicating with their students as they teach English through modular distance learning, and to address their needs as well. Specifically, it attended to first identify the challenges encountered by teachers in communicating with their students as they teach English through modular distance learning. Second is to find out the teachers' approaches in dealing with the challenges in communicating with their students as they teach English through modular distance learning. And lastly is to determine the needs of teachers to deal with unresolved challenges in teaching English remotely. Let us now go to materials and methods and the approach being used. According to Brown and Clark in 2006, they outline a series of phases through which researchers must pass in order to produce a thematic analysis. This procedure allows a clear demarcation of thematic analysis, providing researchers with a well-defined explanation of what it is and how it is carried out, thus maintaining the flexibility tied to its epistemological position. The authors in this paper take a position that analyses are desired to incorporate the individual experiences of the participants and the meanings they attach to them. However, we also wish to consider the impact of the wider social context on these meanings. Brown and Clark describe such a position as contextualist, sitting firmly between essentialism or realism and constructionalism. Not all theorists describe these two poles of epistemological outlook in the same way. Madel et al. In 2000 refers to them as naive realists and radical relativists. Methodologies that go hand in hand with this mid-ground position are typically phenomenological in nature, but the flexibility of thematic analysis, which means that it can also be underpinned by an in-between epistemological position. Willie, in 2008, page 13, summarized this by explaining a position that argues, while experience is always the product of interpretation and therefore constructed and flexible, it is nevertheless real to the person who is having the experience. According to Philden A. Silence B. and Little L. in 2011 in page 2. We wish to consider to view the reality of the challenges encountered in teachers' learnings in teaching English through modular distance learning through an exploration of their experiences and their vision of how to improve the situation. Participants. Purposeful sampling is a widely used technique in qualitative research whereby those cases most likely to be information-rich on the point of interest are selected in order to effectively use limited resources, according to Patton in 2002. The participants of the study were 7 secondary teachers teaching English from Nadres National High School in the division of Zanzibar, who were chosen through purposive sampling by complete elimination. Next is the procedure. The study had the same technical approval on the participants prior to commencing. The researcher also supposed to observe the minimum health protocol in giving the questionnaire to the participants. There are 2 ways of giving the questionnaires to the participants. First is by giving them personally, and second is through the use of Facebook Messenger. The researcher does not foresee to throw to shame and to put the blame on anyone based on the results given, but rather to give voices to the underlying challenges that needs to be addressed and to recognize the needs of the participants in teaching English remotely. Data analysis. First, the data collected from all the participants was transcribed by the researcher. During this process, the initial thoughts and ideas were noted down, as this is considered an essential stage in analysis by Risman in 1993. Next, the transcribed data was then read and reread several times. This process of repeated reading by Brown and Clark in 2006 results in data immersion and refers to the researcher's closeness with the data. Following on this initial stage and building on the notes and ideas generated through transcription and data immersion is the coding process. These codes identify features of the data that the researcher considered pertinent to the research question. Furthermore, as is intrinsic to the method, the whole data set was given equal attention so that full consideration could be given to repeated patterns within the data. The third stage involved searching for themes. This explains larger sections of the data by combining different codes that may have been similar or may have been considered the same aspect within the data. All initial codes relevant to the research question were incorporated into a theme. Brown and Clark in 2006 also suggest that development of semantic maps to aid the generation of themes. This helped the researcher to visualize and consider the links and relationships between themes. Fourth, at this point, any themes that did not have enough data to support them or were too diverse were discarded. This refinement of the themes took place at two levels. Primarily, with the coded data ensuring a form of coherent pattern. Secondly, once a coherent pattern was formed, the themes were considered in relation to the data set as a whole. This ensured that themes accurately reflected what was evident in the data set as a whole by Brown, Clark, and Clark in 2006. Further, coding also took place at this stage to ensure no codes had been missed in the earlier stages. Once a clear idea of the various themes and how they fitted together emerged, analysis moved to phase 5. Defining and naming the themes. Each theme needs to be clearly defined and accompanied by a detailed analysis. Considerations were made not only of the story told within individual themes, but how this related to the overall story that was evident within the data. In addition, it was highly important to develop short but punchy names that conveyed an immediate implication of the essence of the theme. The final stage, or the report production, involved choosing examples of transcripts to illustrate elements of the themes. These extracts clearly identified issues within the theme and presented a lucid example of the point being made. By Fielden A, Silence E, and Little L in 2011 in page 5. We now go to results and discussion. The thematic analysis process that was applied to the transcripts elicited key concepts that were evident in the data. These themes are viewed as essential in determining the understandings of all the participants. There are main categories and subcategories in each theme. These main categories have been labeled as communication challenges encountered by the teachers in teaching English to modular distance learning, coping mechanisms to address the challenges, and teachers' needs to resolve the challenges. There are, of course, aspects of the participants' understandings that overlap across these main categories. This, however, should be viewed as a full interpretation of understandings and attitudes in general, which are never made up of isolated concepts, but are all relative to each other. According to Fielden A, Silence E, and Little L in 2011 page. First, communication challenges encountered by the teachers in teaching English through modular distance learning. Under that is the difficulties in comprehension. The participants mentioned that difficulties in comprehending the lesson is the major challenge they encountered as they communicate with the students in modular distance learning. The hurdle of making the students learn and understand the topic is badged to achieve. It shows when some of the participants observe that students find it difficult to answer activities and and the results of summative tests are poor. According to participant 1, although you explain the instructions, topics well, still some or almost of the same of the students didn't answer the particular activity, especially if it was writing an essay, sharing thoughts, and scheduling. They just answer objective type of tests and actions that have answers key is in the method. And according to participant 7, the results of the summative test are very is incorporated also in the difficulties encountered. Schools educators are considered as by many children as their second family, as these are the parent figures that teach how to read, write, count, and so much more. According to Parham in 1980, teaching is the process of facilitating learning. It involves the transfer of ideas, knowledge, skills, attitudes, beliefs, and feelings to someone, with the aim of bringing about particular changes in a person. But because of the new normal situation, it hinders the teachers to teach effectively the students and address their difficulties. According to participant 4, there are also times when students don't easily get the direction. There are times the students will be messaging me to ask the same questions again. And according to participant 6, the students find it hard to answer the activities, especially those not written in the forum. The next one. Under the communication challenges encountered by the teachers in teaching English to modular distance learning is the digital divide. ICT is a key factor in online distance learning. In the modern digital world, ICT is not just an option but a rule by Cosmos and UBEF in 2009. Participants mentioned that students don't have access to online tools and platforms. Instruction-related challenge in online distance learning is rooted in financial difficulties. This hinders an effective and balanced teaching and learning system, according to Musig Gaffey, Mapuranga, Shiwansa, and Sebron in 2005. Financing distance learning poses a problem in any developing countries like the Philippines by Rashid and Muhammad in 2012. The costs are not within the budget capacity of an average Filipino family, though there are low prices offering, but sustainability falls under another concern. According to participant 3, some cannot join in the online class we are conducting since not all students have phone and net connections. And according to participant 4, this availability of gadgets and signal is also a challenge because not all students have cell phones and not all area where needs have signal. Stable and fast internet connection supports the instructional delivery in online distance learning. However, the Philippines' fixed average speed as of early this year is only 26.18 Mbps, which makes the country rank 114th in the world for mobile speeds and 108th for fixed broadband speeds. Ookla LC in 2020. Teachers rely on the internet for communication and literacy, but stability and speed hinder them to do so. The participants mentioned that unstable and slow internet connection is a challenge. Signal interruption in different geographic sites adds up also to the situation which is out of teachers' control. Teachers are not exempted by the lack of internet connection, which would miss out essential discussions when the internet freezes during synchronous classes by hours in 4, aside from slow internet connection, there are also times when students don't easily get the direction. There are times that students will be messaging me to ask the same questions again. The availability of gadgets and signal is also a challenge because not all students have cell phones and not all area here in Puerto Diaz have signal. Participant 5 mentioned more. Online games have become extremely popular among the young generation, thus leading to the proliferation of online games addiction on a global platform. Online gaming has become one of the most addictive internet activities to date by one entry in 2006. Because of this, learners spend more time playing online games rather than studying. According to participant 5, there is a misuse of technology, and according to participant 6, some are more inclined to play more into games like Mobile Legends. The third one, under communication challenges encountered by the teachers in teaching English promotion, their distance learning is keeping up students' motivation. According to Bobby in 2012, he cited in his work that according to Bandura in 1986, page 5, what people think, believe, and feel affects how they behave. Bandura believed that experience and abilities are not adequate to predict ability to perform, but an individual's expectations about their ability to perform a task and what they anticipate to be the outcome of their success may determine conduct. That is why attitude of the learner works as how efficiently they can learn. Keeping up students' motivation can sometimes be troublesome. That is why it adds up to the major concern. As participants said, that learners suffer from listening barriers, perception barriers, and oral barriers. Learners are also lazy to answer modules according to the participant. So participant 5 said or stated that listening barriers, perception barriers, and oral barriers. And participant 6 stated some are lazy in answering their modules. The next one is coping mechanism to address the challenges. The challenges experienced by the teacher in communicating with their students are neutralized through the first one is home visitation. Home visit is a way to bridge the gap between school and home for students, families, and teachers. A growing amount of research points to the importance of parents supporting their children's learning in the home. Parent-teacher conferences, phone calls, sending letters, and progress reports are part of the communications to follow up students, especially those who are academically at risk, to monitor their school performances and daily classroom. Tallman in 2012 explained that home visit is to socialize and build positive family-teacher partnerships. It includes sharing information about their classroom, completing forms, and reviewing children's educational progress. In addition to home visit, to establish relationships and communication. Home visitation programs developed over the past several decades focus especially on teachers educating and supporting parents and children in the home like achieving key in 2012. Participants noted that home visitation is a huge part of how to cope with these challenges. According to participant 2, we conducted monitoring this month of March, but time wasn't enough. According to participant 3, through phone calls and home visitation. And participant 4 stated, regarding the students who don't have gadgets, I sometimes do home visiting to follow up their activities. And according to participant 6, visit and talk to them so that they will cope up with answering their modules. Next is we have to recognize and reward students. Participants highly value the effect of recognizing and rewarding the students to strive more in learning. According to participant 1, I commend those students who almost or perfectly answered all activities in the modules so others will be motivated too. And also, according to participant 6, giving rewards to the students who submitted complete and accurate answers. The students have been rewarded for good behavior for many years, even before the development of Skinner's theory of operant conditioning. In the 1880s, New York City established a token economy as a means of rewarding correct school work and punishing school offenses by cornering in 1977. In fact, though, it was the theory of operant conditioning that led to the widespread use of rewards in the classroom. Basically stated, operant conditioning means that if a reinforcer is delivered after a certain behavior, then the particular behavior will be strengthened. A reinforcer is anything given that will increase the chance of the behavior happening again. In school, reinforcers usually are things like stickers, praise, treats, and grades. The next one is we have to transcribe directions. A participant mentioned that she transcribed the direction of the activities in order for the students to understand the lesson. Usually, in a typical classroom setup, transcribing words is frequently used to enable the students to fully understand. According to participant 4, in dealing with these challenges, I translate or transcribe directions to Filipino or Bicol so that the students will find it easier to understand. I also give examples after the directions so that they can follow our lesson. Next, we have teachers need to resolve the challenges. Under that is the internet connectivity. Participants are appealing to have a preload data and a stable internet connectivity to always get in touch with the students. According to participant 3, they will have and participant 4 stated, first and foremost, the signal of any cellular site they can be very much improved will be a great help in resolving issues. And as what participant 6 stated, good internet connection and load or cell phone. Next is the support from parents. A home is the first school of a child. In this time, it is very important to gain the support of parents. As the parent participant stated, that parents should guide or help the students in answering the modules and encourage them as well. Without proper supervision, it is somehow hard for the teacher to teach and encourage them to study. So, according to participant 1, support from the parents or family members that will guide or help the teachers in answering the modules at home. And according to participant 4, the encouragement of parents is also a big factor. There are parents who just let their students do their thing, and it's somehow hard for me as a teacher to teach students or encourage them about time management and study habits with the participant where the parents don't support them. So the summary of findings, the study revealed the following results. First is the communication challenges encountered by the teachers in teaching English to modular distance learning, and under that, we have difficulties in comprehension, physical divide, and keeping students' motivation. The next one is the coping mechanisms needed by the teachers to address the challenges, and those are home visitation, recognize and reward students, and transcribe direction. So, in order, so even though teachers have coping mechanisms, we cannot escape the fact that there are still unresolved challenges that teachers need to resolve these challenges, which may mean for internet connection or internet connectivity and support from. So the conclusion of this analysis, the analysis and interpretation of the gathered data led to the following conclusions. First is the identical challenges encountered by the teacher in communicating with the students as they teach English to modular distance learning were mostly brought about by apparent lack of preparation from the policy. The second conclusion is teachers and students don't have the access to online platforms and tools because of financial constraints. The two-way communication suffers and the results of the outputs are poor. The third one is students are losing motivation. The love to study is slowly fading because of several barriers like listening barriers, perception barriers, and oral barriers. And also, teachers need to have full support from the government. So for the recommendation, based on the findings and conclusions, the following are recommended. The Department of Education should provide each teacher and student a device to enable them to communicate with each other. Next, the local government, barangay officials, and the school have collaborated to allocate a budget to meet a free Wi-Fi for all area. Lastly, teachers should be exposed more to seminars and trainings to improve their strategies and communication skills, especially in dealing with the challenges they encounter, specifically in communicating with the students as they teach English no modular distance. So here are the references that the researcher gathered. So thank you for listening and viewing. Have a nice day, everyone.